The stories presented in this video are real, but we have changed the characters' names and altered images to protect their identities. The creator of this video is not an investigative officer. These narratives have been sourced from various internet platforms. Our intent is not to accuse or target anyone in particular. Thank you for understanding.
Officers swear to uphold the community's safety. We have faith that they will protect lives and uphold people's rights while serving. However, it's easy to forget that police officers are also individuals. They are capable of making poor choices and errors. This is especially evident in the case of Elly Warren, a 20-year-old aspiring marine biologist whose body was discovered dead on November 9, 2016, next to a bar on Tofo Beach in Mozambique. The local police carried the case through the depths of indifference and back again after her body was discovered. Furthermore, the police officers who the community depended on to protect them turned out to be callous and merciless. Despite the overwhelming evidence to the contrary, these so-called detectives labeled Elly's case as accidental. They caused the Warren family to experience unfathomable pain and forced Elly's distraught father to tour the world in search of solutions, and their only goal was to secure justice for their daughter. Elly Warren's situation is extremely upsetting on many levels, not only because she was killed by a violent criminal, but also because the Mozambican police showed no concern at all. Here at True Crime Stories Hub, welcome. If you're new here, I share brand new real crime stories every week that just feature you, me, and a case to solve. No awful AI narrations. Click the subscribe button if you wish to see some classic true crime documentaries. It will keep you updated on all of my upcoming videos and is completely free. Melbourne, Australia, is where Elly Warren was born in 1996. Elly's parents, Nicole and Paul, as well as her younger sister Christy, make up her family. As a child, Elly was a lively, carefree girl who cherished her family. However, she didn't have an ideal home life. Elly's parents split when she was still a child. However, Elly remained the kind and vibrant person she was despite this tragic and life-changing event. Elly had a strong relationship with both of her parents despite their separation. However, she had a special bond with her father. Elly was great friends with Paul. They would spend a lot of time together and go to the beach, which at the time was Elly's favorite spot on earth. Paul liked his daughter and thought she was a young woman who enjoyed life and yearned for adventure. Elly was a treasure to Paul, and the two were almost inseparable. Nicole, Elly's mother, said that Elly was a lively girl. She was known to be extremely gregarious and had a passion for exploration and adventure. Elly grew up going to Parkdale Secondary College, and she intended to study marine biology at James Cook University in North Queensland after graduating. If there was one thing Elly liked more than the outdoors, it was traveling to other countries and seeing their cultures, especially in Africa. Elly then went to work. In order to pay for a marine biology program in Tofo, Mozambique, she worked 3 jobs in 2016. You see, in order to sate her wanderlust, Elly wanted to work with scientists and marine biologists before leaving for college. Really, it was the ideal chance. Elly would explore the diverse marine life in various areas throughout the world and spend time with the people she looked up to. In October 2016, Elly spent 6 weeks at Tofo Beach in Mozambique, South Africa, with the underwater diving club Underwater Africa. Elly was eager to begin this new journey that would change her life, so she packed her luggage and said goodbye to her family. Elly stayed in a bungalow at Casa Berry, a well-known diving resort near Tofo Beach, Mozambique, after arriving there. Elly had a great experience underwater while participating in a dream volunteer group that took a boat out to the reefs in this stunning location for 6 weeks. She was amazed by the beauty of nature, and this experience strengthened her resolve to save the globe, protect marine life, and become a change agent. Elly kept in touch with her family during her 6-week journey to Mozambique and her parents recalled the joy in her voice when they inquired about her well-being. This was something that Elly would never forget, and she was thrilled to have had the opportunity to experience it. With all of the activities, fresh underwater discoveries, and vistas that Elly had seen, the 6 weeks flew by. It was finally time for Elly to return home and begin a new chapter in her life, college, in early November of 2016. Unfortunately, Elly would never be able to return to Australia via plane, and the location she loved the most became a terrible place of fear for her family as well as for Elly. Elly was scheduled to leave Mozambique on November 8, 2016. Reports on what transpired next are now conflicting. According to some accounts, Elly met up with her pals at the camp after checking in, and it was also implied that she left some of her possessions there. However, Elly never checked in that day, according to a complaint from the hostel's manager. In any case, Elly and her group went out later that night to celebrate the conclusion of their 6-week program, and they stayed at Victor's Pub, a local pub by the shore, for most of the evening. Elly's friends said that although she had a few drinks, she was aware, lucid, and didn't appear intoxicated. Elly was thrilled to see her family again, and was scheduled to board a plane to return to Australia the following day. Since 6 weeks was the longest they had ever been apart, Elly's parents also missed her. However, Elly never got on the aircraft. In actuality, Nicole and Paul were instantly alarmed when Elly neglected to contact her family after Tuesday. They attempted to contact Elly and all of her acquaintances, but they received no encouraging response. However, Elly's parents received a call after a while, but it wasn't from Elly. Christy, Elly's sister, was there, and she had bad news for them. On the phone, Christy was distraught and could be heard crying constantly. Elly was killed. Elly's parents experienced unspeakable horror. It was terrible enough to learn that their daughter had been killed, but it was heartbreaking to witness the terrible deed being carried out on a different continent. Emotionally distraught, Elly's parents had a ton of questions. Who harmed Elly like this? What could possibly motivate someone to harm Elly? How did she end up? The lives of Paul and Nicole were completely upended. Nevertheless, Paul and Nicole believed that Elly's case was in excellent hands and hoped that the Mozambican authorities would find the truth about their daughter's untimely death. However, Paul and Nicole made the mistake of putting their trust in the wrong people, and as time went on, they came to the conclusion that Mozambican investigators had no interest whatsoever in cracking Elly's case. This started a never-ending circle of chaos for the Warren family, because Elly's killer was allowed to escape by the same authorities who were meant to protect Mozambique from criminal activity. Here's the problem, though. Mozambique is a stunning country that is abundant in natural resources and boasts stunning beaches and recreational places. However, the nation is also still dealing with the aftermath of the Civil War. Mozambique's biggest draws are its countless beaches and national parks, which are the main causes of the country's tourist boom and its primary source of income. This is just what Elly was doing. People travel from all over the world to Mozambique to witness the wonders of nature and return in amazement and admiration. Despite its natural beauty, Mozambique has a lot of ugly things ingrained in its foundation. About 55% of residents believe that the majority of Mozambican police officers are dishonest. Police personnel are hasty to close cases that aren't even finished and lack professionalism and work ethic. They simply come up with a backward solution, declare it to be the truth, and then shut the case so they may get on to the next one, instead of fully solving a problem. Although I can't say for sure, I'd venture to guess that this occurs in many popular tourist spots. In fact, it was a fairly well-known belief when I lived in a tourist city that police often covered up significant crimes or classified them as less serious crimes in order to avoid discouraging tourists. A local fisherman discovered Elly's lifeless body the following Wednesday morning, perhaps within or next to a public block. See, this is just one of the many annoying things that have come to light in Elly's case. But it's also where the Mozambican detectives are so inconsistent with the specifics. Detective Juma Daudo, a Yemeni police spokeswoman, first declared Elly's death to be an accident and emphasized that her corpse was free of any cuts, bruises, or marks. For obvious reasons, the Warren family was quite frustrated with the slow pace of the investigation. It took nearly 6 months for the first flowery police report to surface, and the details were horrifying. It said that Elly had overdosed on drugs and died. Now this was quite suspicious because she had no drugs in her system when she passed away, which was really strange. Elly's parents attempted to get in touch with the Australian authorities in the interim, hoping that the two investigative teams would cooperate to resolve Elly's case. But Mozambique flatly rejected their request. They claimed that they were the only ones responsible for the probe. This was surprised and frustrating at the same time. Nicole, Elly's mother, even started a Change.org petition pleading with Australian Prime Minister Scott Morrison to assist in resolving Elly's situation and ensuring that she receives justice. The petition gathered more than 36,000 signatures in just 2 weeks. Nearing its target of 75,000 signatures, the petition has nearly reached 65,000 as of late. However, Mozambican investigators did not assist. You see, 4 days after the first police report was made public, a second one was issued, this time declaring that Elly's death was a homicide. However, this is the point at which confusion increases. Mechanical asphyxiation and the ingestion of sandy materials into Elly's mouth and lungs were cited as the causes of death. Furthermore, the location where Elly's body was recovered was encircled by dense, firm, and compacted red earth, whereas the sand found inside her body was loose beach sand. As a result, it is assumed that Elly was attacked on the beach and that someone moved her corpse. However, who did this and why? That's precisely what Elly's parents were interested in learning. Paul, Elly's father, took matters into his own hands after realizing that the Mozambican police were not interested in solving Elly's case and were really making things worse rather than better. Paul moved to South Africa a year after Elly's untimely death in order to get his own answers. Finding out who had done such a terrible thing to his helpless and defenseless daughter was his only objective. Even though he has lost his daughter and closest friend, Paul is dedicated to finding the culprit and giving justice and peace to Elly. His actions are absolutely admirable, and Elly is extremely fortunate to have a loving and unyielding father like Paul. Paul remained steadfast in his search for information on the tragic death of his daughter. He didn't take long at all. To his surprise, he learned more about Elly's murder in a single day than the investigators could in a whole year. Because tourists going missing and being discovered dead and humiliated in Mozambique's streets doesn't exactly scream safe, it makes you think that the country's authorities were either uninterested in solving Elly's case, or that they wanted to preserve their nation's image. However, Paul's ability to learn so much in such a short period of time raised one significant question. Could the police have been deliberately hiding something, or were they just plain uninterested? Paul visited the resort where Elly was staying on his second day in Tofo. He was unable to contain his emotions and broke down in tears when sitting at the same table where Elly was photographed on her last day in Tofo. He felt a connection to Elly that was almost spiritual, which was what made it so terrible and devastating. It is something that no father should ever experience. In order to gather information, he even posted signs around the area. Within hours, many residents came forward, and Paul soon discovered a crucial piece of information. However, hearing it was horrifying. You see, Paul received a picture of Elly from a fisherman, and what he saw was a real nightmare. Although it was a picture of Elly, she was regrettably not present. Instead, she lay disrobed and motionless, with wounds to her neck, limbs, and face, suggesting that she battled to the end. Seeing his daughter so defenseless and degraded was a horrible sight for Paul. It was a horrible and regrettable event that he will never be able to forget. It's heartbreaking to know that Paul had to witness this firsthand rather than investigators taking action. I mean, he can't help but praise the fishermen for speaking up and being so open with information, but pictures like this aren't supposed to be seen by family members. Paul, however, came to a realization after viewing this picture. Elly's location and body position were entirely different from what the Warren family was told by Mozambique detectives. The Warren family initially thought Elly had been recovered unharmed near a public restroom block, but this new image sparked a hypothesis that someone had attacked Elly and subsequently tragically killed her at the beach. This further supported the idea that Elly's body contained beach sand. Unfortunately, the picture also hinted at something far more horrifying, and that was the fact that Elly had undoubtedly been used, which is what gives the case such a horrible undertone. Despite being heartbreaking and horrifying, this picture demonstrated that the local police were probably attempting to hide Elly's death. However, another event confirmed this theory. When Paul visited Mozambique in 2017 and 2018, he encountered people who had seen something strange. A woman who was among those who discovered Elly's body was shown the picture the fisherman had given of her body at the beach. Elly was put in a very strange position close to the aforementioned restroom block, as the witness clearly recalled. How did Elly end up on a beach in this picture, in this woman's opinion? This demonstrated that Elly's body was unquestionably removed off the beach and positioned close to the restroom. It's interesting to note that she was in the Muslim prayer position when her body was discovered close to the restroom block, with her arms spread wide in front of her head and her backside jetted up. The witness added that cops had already shown up when she spotted Elly near the restroom. This gave rise to the belief that the police officers were the ones who repositioned Elly's body to make it appear to be an accident rather than a murder. The cops wanted the scene to appear as though Elly had OD'd while in the middle of prayer, or that she had fallen over a toilet block and died, or something similar. If this is accurate, it is inconceivable that the local police officers would have blocked Elly's body, the crime scene, and the evidence. But why was still the glaring question? Why would the investigators act in this way? Furthermore, why would law enforcement conceal a crime scene? Did the police play a role in Elly's death, or were they working for a much darker force? Despite the Warren family's repeated demands and appeals, the Australian police had not yet been engaged in Elly's case. However, there wasn't much that Australian authorities could do because Mozambique hadn't requested their assistance, and even if they wanted to, they couldn't legally cross borders to provide assistance. It was obvious that Elly's extremely suspicious crime was not being well solved by the Mozambican police. Unbelievably, the local Mozambican police admitted that Elly's body had been transferred when Paul finally presented them with all of his findings. Why then, weren't they pursuing the case and identifying the individual who ultimately led Elly to her demise? As it turned out, the Mozambican authorities were not in any hurry to settle Elly's case. Surprisingly, despite all the damning evidence that surfaced, Elly's case remained unresolved, and the Mozambican police essentially dismissed her and closed their investigation. The Warren family tried everything they could, despite being saddened by the Mozambican police and authorities' conduct. Numerous local news stations and 60 Minutes Australia covered Elly's story, which attracted a lot of public attention. And in 2020, Paul did receive assistance. Nick Greger was a German private investigator. He worked closely to try to bring down criminal organizations, illicit activities, and a lot of other dubious things in the Middle East and Africa. Since the globe was shut down by the COVID-19 epidemic in 2020, Nick and Paul were unable to return to Mozambique. However, Nick kept Paul updated while beginning his assignment from his home in Germany. In order to obtain inside knowledge on the dangerous gang in Tofo, he made contact with a number of South African women who were engaged in adult work. To put it bluntly, This band of crooks was quite suspicious, and one woman thought that they were implicated in Elly's death. Nick was made aware of a gang that dealt drugs and occasionally committed violent crimes like robberies. Even the cops were at their mercy because they were so strong and brutal. In essence, Tofo was run by this gang, and the police had no say in the matter. They had been overpowered and outnumbered. Nick conducted virtual meetings with other ladies who either had criminal histories or had been a part of the gang in the past, since he knew he needed additional information. Nick was an expert in his field and understood that the Warren family needed answers, even though he knew he was playing with fire. After searching through a lengthy list of potential women, he eventually found one who seemed ideal for a covert inside look at the gang. Nick gave the woman the assignment to make friends with gang members and get them to admit to their involvement in Elly's death. After 2 weeks of attempting to curry favor with the gang, the crime lord finally spoke, and the boss was unaware that the woman was filming him. He admitted to selling illegal drugs, robbing tourists, and even killing individuals by driving them to their deaths. Although he didn't specifically name Elly in his ambiguous confession, he was known to entice visitors and exploit them in a variety of frightening ways. So it wouldn't be out of character for him to carry out such a horrible deed. The pieces definitely fit, because we know that this gang was active in the region when Elly was killed, and that he was more than happy to exploit young women when they were there. The woman told Nick the information right away, and the current hypothesis is that, among other things, Elly was robbed when she was accosted by the Tofo gang members at the beach. They overwhelmed Elly, exploited her, then brutally killed her when she rebelled. Her body was then moved to a public restroom building nearby and was staged to appear to be an accident. The police even assisted them in covering up the incident. Remember that this is only a theory, but if it is true, which, let's face it, is most likely, imagine how rotten the Mozambican police are. Without feeling guilty, they are prepared to conceal a crime scene and make it appear completely different. Imagining what the people of Mozambique must go through knowing that the detectives will not take any action to deliver justice to their people and can just brush it off and pretend nothing happened is so horrifying. If you're watching from the West, you're aware that our own cops are frequently quite dishonest. The truth is probably never revealed, at least not in the majority of cases, and they conceal things for their own benefit. But it's just horrifying to witness how open and honest the Mozambican police are about this, and how helpless everyone is to stop it. Paul rushed to the Australian embassy in South Africa after receiving all of Nick's information and insisted that they take action. Even though Mozambique would never formally invite Australian police to conduct an investigation, the facts were obvious, and if political pressure was applied, the Australian police might force their way into African territory, which is exactly what happened. For the first time in a very long time, the Warren family finally got some positive news in February 2021, after 5 years of non-stop back and forth. The Australian Federal Police called Paul to inform him that they had been formally mandated to look into Elly's death in Mozambique. After years, the Warren family was finally able to witness the conclusion of their daughter's case when the Australian Federal Police became engaged in Elly's case. It's far from over, though. Despite the passage of time and the continuing inquest, Paul remains hopeful that he and his bereaved family will receive answers. During his search for answers, Paul endured a great deal of anguish and suffering. In addition to advocating for Elly's justice, Paul is determined to amend the law, particularly as it relates to cross-continental and cross-country fatalities. He has been vociferous in advocating for reforms to international legislation and accelerating the pace of inquiries into deaths that occur in other nations and continents. The Warren family would have been spared this agonizing suffering if the Australian police had stepped in sooner. It appears that the Mozambican detectives intentionally blew Elly's case from the beginning. We don't know if they did it to protect their own nation's image or out of fear of the gang, but we do know that the authorities were immoral, unethical, and unprofessional for whatever reason. The entire culpability lies with the Mozambican police. That much is certain. The Warren family is attempting to wrest whatever closure they can from this chaotic inquiry after the Mozambican detectives' actions had disastrous results. Even after 8 exhausting years, Elly's case remains unresolved. Only the AFP investigators who are currently working on Elly's case can provide genuine and authentic answers, notwithstanding the high suspicion that the TOFO criminal group was involved in Elly's death. I have every confidence that Elly's situation will be resolved in due time. And this is another one of those amazing sad stories where we essentially know what happened, but we need to prove it in order to get justice. And the hardest part is usually demonstrating it. When it was all over, Elly's ashes were dumped on the water at a nearby beach in Melbourne, where she loved to go with her father. To say their final goodbyes to a warrior, a nature lover, and a free-spirited young woman whose life was taken from her so cruelly, everyone who loved Elly turned out to her memorial. Paul also erected a kind of monument in Mozambique to help people remember Elly and the tragedy that befell her. Elly's life was brutally ended, despite the fact that she had an adventurous person. The Warren family won't be able to move on from this awful and unexpected death until the wrongdoers are held accountable for what they did to young Elly. Personally, I am eagerly awaiting that day. We appreciate your interest in this new True Crime Stories episode. I wanted to express my gratitude to Dave H. and Donna, 2 channel members in particular. Currently, the best way to support the channel and lend a hand is to become a member, which gives you access to new videos often days or weeks before they are made publicable. Those of you who have made that decision have my sincere gratitude. You may locate the link in the description or click the large join button beneath the video if you'd like to join. As always though, please remember to subscribe and watch this other fascinating case I discussed if you liked this video. It keeps you updated on all of my upcoming videos and is completely free.